Hi, I'm Amy Simpson. I'm Director of Public Relations at Southeast Kentucky Community and Technical College. And it is my pleasure today to introduce one of our newest instructors, Matt Warren. We're excited over here because we have gotten approval for a new certification, Digital Printing Technology. And this is 3D printers are becoming widely used now. And so we are offering students the opportunity to get a credential that will teach them all about digital printing and how it can benefit them and in the future. But now we're going to talk to Matt and let him tell you a little bit more about it because he's the expert. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
So, Matt, we have just gotten the news this week that SACS has approved our credential. Could you tell me a little bit about this credential? I understand it's a 16-hour certificate in digital printing technology. So, what all does that involve?
Yeah, so there's you said 16 hours, so it breaks down to I think 5 kind of direct classes, and then there's some additional ones to fill out some of the hours. What's going to essentially show is that you know how to correctly, safely pick your favorite verbiage for 3D printers across FDM, which is like these behind me, the spool ones, which you'll probably most likely see if you look things up online or a time lapse or anything like that, as well as resin printers. They tend to have more of a safety connection with them than the filament ones. We have most of the equipment for some low-cost tabletop metal style printing. Still waiting on a couple important parts to really get that going, as well as learning design aspects built specifically for additive manufacturing or 3D printing, to where you are fully taking advantage of this kind of technology and manufacturing versus traditional, where you can kind of get away with more things or more blocky kind of things, where with this we can really cut down on material usage to cut down on cost as well as time.
Well, tell me a little bit. I mean, this is fascinating because this, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have dreamed that we could do this kind of stuff. But tell me a little bit about the machine you've got going in the background there. What you were explaining that this uses a filament. For someone who is uninitiated in 3D printing, can you kind of break that down and how that works?
Yeah, so the machines that are directly behind me are basically identical. There's like a build plate difference on this one with the baby Groot on it, and then just each machine kind of has its own different personality, and I tend to put a sticky note of a funny name so I can keep track of them as well. But with filament printing, if you've ever kind of picked up or used a spool of like weed eater string, it's similar. I have seen people try to use and convert machines to use weed eater string just for experiments. But it's really the most approachable form of 3D printing. This is the kind of stuff that's most likely going to be in your more basic kind of maker spaces, ones set in public libraries or at elementary schools, high schools, even for either faculty use, maybe student use at other colleges, universities. Through work that I've done with Lincoln Memorial, they've been looking at getting a few machines so that they can print on site versus always coming here to contact me for things that they need.
Okay, you mentioned, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. You mentioned the IDE S Center.
Yeah.
Explain, so you are also, another hat that you wear, so to speak, is that you
I mostly just wear this one.
Yeah, you're the coordinator of the IDE S Center. So tell us a little bit about that. I understand that the IDE S Center came about originally from a grant from Toyota to Show, and the idea is to allow people in the community to come in and use the space for entrepreneurship. For instance, if they have an idea, like a widget that they want to make, instead of having to go and pay for an expensive prototype somewhere overseas, even, they can come in and use our 3D printers in order to do that. Is that pretty much? Tell us a little bit about what you've experienced so far in the IDE S Center.
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of the main points. It was a Toyota Tushu funded thing in the very beginning. Since then, we've been able to greatly expand the number of machines we have through a partnership with Somerset Community College and their rapid response additive manufacturing initiative that came out of the pandemic from 2020. It still feels weird that that's 2 years ago now, or going on 2 years. To bolster a response in the case of another pandemic or other disaster or event that can be soften the effects through additive manufacturing, like when we did all the face shields. But the IDE S Center, in a broader term, is a makerspace. It's a free to use makerspace where some of the larger ones can have like a monthly subscription kind of thing. But people can come in if they know how to use printers already and just either can't have one at home or whatever the case is. There's computers set up to where they can kind of come in, go directly to them or on the computer, and then do what they need to do with their file or ideas, whatever, and put it on the machines. Or what a lot of it has been is people contacting me with a desired thing. A lot of them have come in with files already done, whether it be just kind of tabletop miniatures for gaming, or other desktop little figurines for fun. Let's see if I can lean the right way. This red model is a scaled down version of a teaching aid that I did for LMU. I've done many models for them, which is why we've kept this kind of thing going. And then how they've offered, how can we help keep this lab going, as well as get information about starting their own, maybe not their own lab, but having printers on site.
You mentioned the work the IDE S Center did during the pandemic. It's my understanding that we manufactured around 1,000 face shields, or is my number off?
No, I think for the most part, you would probably have more information on that than I would actually, where with things being shut down, I was coming in very periodically, mostly for machine maintenance. If something went out of balance or clogged or whatever it was, to fix them so they could get back into production. So a lot of the concrete numbers of how many were made, all the hospitals and centers that they were sent to, I don't know directly.
I think that number's right. I know that we
that's
sent
the
them
one I always heard was around 1,000.
To area hospitals, and this was when you really couldn't find face shields at first. So we were kind of on the forefront of sending those out to clinics, hospitals, all around in our service region.
Yeah, I remember very early on when the shutdowns started happening, where the larger maker community wanted to do something to help, and there was a few ideas floated around, but they were, with it being a medical pandemic, it was very iffy on sanitary kind of things with what the initial ideas were. And eventually it came out with the face shields to support the PPE shortage. And once kind of the initial design came out, it blew up from there, with people simplifying those, being able to make them stackable, figuring out what's the best material to do for the sanitary reasons, for cleaning reasons. And by the end of it, I mean, people were just cranking them out all over the country, all over the world, with some of the really good designs to send out to the hospitals and medical facilities that needed them while everything was still being bought up shorthand elsewhere.
Now, you've brought up Somerset a couple of times now. Tell a little bit more about the consortium that you all have formed. This is to, in case you said if there's another pandemic or another disaster, you can pool your resources to make. What kinds of products would you make?
Yeah, so a lot of this really, well, the IDE Center kind of stems from a former student that works at Toyota. But with the DPT classes and the RAMI expansion, a lot of that is stemming from Somerset Community College, where Eric Woodridge, I always mess up his name, always, came in, started trying to get the state to further embrace additive manufacturing as kind of a push towards where the future of manufacturing is going to go, even though it's been around 20, 30, 40 years, surprisingly. It goes much further back than I would have guessed. It's just now it's a lot more cost effective than before, like you said, 20 years ago, when we kind of had the one fridge size machine in the corner. So the curriculum is coming from them. All that's been figured out through them. It's been ran for a few years with the RAMI partnership. It's a organized, coordinated effort to where instead of Somerset's figuring out what they need to do or want to do, Southeast figuring out what they want to do, Hazard, Maynardville, whichever campuses, maybe even ones outside of KCTCS, are trying to tackle this slightly different thing as a result of whatever the event would be. It's an organized way to where we're all working on the same models, working with at least very similar machines, if not the exact same machines, to where if there's an issue, we have a safety net to get information, to get help, to get parts, whatever it is. Last year we did a mock disaster.
That's right. I was getting ready to ask about your drill. I knew you did a drill.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, last year we did a mock disaster for a second, either separate pandemic or a rise of a new COVID variant where shutdowns and PPE would be at a shortage again. With this, it was done on the liquid resin machines for a reusable swab and swab holder kind of combo model. I think the original design came from like a German doctor. I looked into it, but it was weird to find the original information on it. My assumption for the safety protocol part of that is that like a standard cotton tip, however that would work, would go over top of it. They would swab, and then that would go away, and then they could wash, cure, whatever the cleaning process would be needed of the swab or the actual swab part, and it would go back into circulation for use, cutting down on waste as well as what's needed to be ordered and used.
Oh, that's a great idea. So do you know how many times could one of those swabs be used, or do you know?
With it being the resin, quite a bit. With resin printing, it's doing such small layer lines that they're almost non-existent. You can see them under microscopes, but the parts typically are solid, especially when it's small parts like the swabs.
Mhm.
So as long as there was no very catastrophic damage done to it over the course of however many cleanings, presumably as long as it needed, I would assume after so many alcohol baths and cures under a UV lamp or whatever the process would, it would eventually deteriorate and break. I couldn't give you a direct a guess.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, do you have some models that you could kind of nearby that you could kind of show to the camera so people could see some of the amazing work that can be done on these 3D printers?
Yeah, this is something I started working on yesterday. Someone on campus wanted a few kind of trinket models to hand out as she went around, and just wanted to hand things out so that they have something can sit on the table that reminds them of the college. So with this in particular, there's 3 lines for the for flash drives to sit in, a few for SD cards. There's some other versions that have micro SD cards, but I don't know how widely those are used beyond just kind of phones and maybe some cameras. And then I went in through a few of the softwares that I use, added the 2 things on the side for business card and sticky notes to go into, and then pins or whatever you need go
So,
up top.
so this is kind of the merch that you'd put in a swag bag or say or grab
Yeah,
bag,
that was kind of what
right?
she was looking for.
Okay.
Um, Another one that I was doing for a personal friend uh, is some of these kind of desktop little Pokemon models, some of her favorite ones. I did them in resin, which is why it's this kind of matte gray. And let's see if I can get it to show like where you can see kind of some layer inconsistencies,
Kind of the
some little bits.
striations.
Yeah, striation, very good word. On that, there's almost nothing on this because again, this is doing it at fractions of a millimeter. Where this, well, I guess this is also a fraction of a millimeter on these. But just it's so small that it's very hard to look or to see with the naked eye. And then those can be sanded and painted. Same thing with these. It's just the miniature one or the resin ones are typically painted because of the detail they can get and how people really use resin ones more often.
What about the one behind you, the anatomical one? I think that's one of the most fascinating, the red one. Can you get
Yeah,
get that a little closer for us?
take that out real fast. I'll grab the hand too, just because it's in reach. I
Oh,
don't have to turn back for it.
okay.
Yeah, so this is about, I think, half the size that I did for LMU when they brought in the model for wanting this. There's also a mated flesh covered one, so they sit together and look really good. And then just because of how detailed this still is and how cool of a model it is, I wanted to do a smaller version for in the lab. When the IDE S Center was being talked about while I was still taking computer-aided drafting courses here, I knew educational models would probably be a large percentage of usage because those kind of things are usually so pricey from the third-party retailers and whatnot, where there's so many of these out there, usually free, or the files can be fairly cheap, and then you have those files to reproduce as needed.
Can you explain,
That's
okay, to
really cool.
somebody who just has never done this before at all, has no idea what's going on in that lab, is there any way you can show on your camera, this comes from a computer program first, right? So are the students going to be learning how to do that side of it?
Yeah, a lot of people when they come in will ask, you know, how hard is it to do, how easy is it to do, to directly just use the machine to pull things off of some of these websites and just put them in the machine is very easy. And I'll usually say the limit of the machine is based on the user. So if you can learn on any of the CAD softwares, there's some very simple ones. There's some very industry standard, does a lot more kind of ones out there, and even some that I don't know how to use that other people do because it involves like coding and just all this extra information that I can't give, but they already know. So they've been able to adapt to those softwares a lot easier. So I think getting as much out of the machines and the technology as you can involves some knowledge in CAD softwares. Slicing softwares are typically very easy because it's just preparing the file to go on the printer. And the courses will teach you some of the kind of beginning aspects of CAD design, getting you comfortable with 3D modeling so that you can, in some of the higher courses, or if you find CAD courses at another university or whatnot, be able to go from just kind of this kind of thing, which is mostly a square, up to custom designing hands and prosthetics and anything.
Tell us a little bit about that hand. That hand is a fascinating story. The prosthetic hand.
Real quick, just because I saw it sitting on the keyboard, I have this, which is again done in the resin, and I've just left it on. I don't know that it's going to be able to focus on something that small. And I've left it on the supports just so it's easier to keep track of.
What in the world is that?
That is an accurate size of a 4-week fetus.
Oh, wow.
I'd done that model, but in a larger, more presentable way for LMU, and one of the other biology teachers from there was wanting some copies as well as some other things we've been working on, and I surprised him with there's going to be one of these, but it ended up being 2 because I needed to test one of the machines for something, and this is just a really fast print where it's so small. So he was really blown away by having an accurate representation versus the regular ones, which were around the size of these snippers. And that's something that the resin ones can do that the plastic ones certainly can't, or in very specific scenarios can, is do very, very micro models. But with the hand or kind of any prosthetic, so I've seen several kind of initiatives within the community or the larger 3D printing community kind of come together and do prosthetics for kids. They've been able to put Marvel, DC, Star Wars, whatever their kind of favorite thing is, logos and stuff on them, because doing prosthetics for kids traditionally is going to be very expensive because they grow so fast. They'll move through prosthetics very fast, where this can ease the financial strain in those kind of situations. Was you on the specific story on this one?
Well, one of our it's just quickly. It was one of our students designed that for a local lady, right?
Yeah. It was I'm hesitant to say nurse because I know certain occupations in hospitals and stuff hate when they're not nurses, but they get called nurses. But it is one of those kind of positions. And she had a stroke, and to save her life, when they injected her with, I don't know the drug's name, the drug that would pull the blood back to the heart to try and keep her alive, it resulted in a hand and a foot being amputated. her insurance would only be able to pay for one, so they went with the leg so she could walk easier. And through her daughter, who was friends with a student in the computer data drafting courses at the time, they got together and was able to work out this hand prosthetic so that she could still use it to pick up pop cans, water bottles, a lot of kind of basic things she needed to get through the day. And she was able to use it daily for a number of months before she unfortunately passed.
Now that hand is made up of a lot of itty bitty pieces, isn't it? I mean, it's pretty intricate.
Yeah, I think most of the printed parts are at least decently sized. There's metal rods going through it for kind of the joint part, as well as fishing line to give it good strength on the grip. I think these kind of bolts on the inside are probably the smallest part, and then they're like a couple M&M glued together kind of sized things. But it's definitely a lot of parts. It's a very intricate assembly.
Now, back to the new program that we've got going. If the student is interested in this program, they want to get this certification in digital printing technology, how will that certificate serve them? What kinds of things will that help them do? As far as in a job, or does this sort of complement any other of our high-skilled manufacturing fields?
Yeah, I had kind of a cheat sheet pulled up for my help because I had a feeling this would come up, and I just wanted to get it right. The advancement in how common and how affordable the 3D printers have become, they're starting to really branch out into many different fields to where even some of our local dental offices have essentially resin printers to do replacement teeth and stuff. And Redbird Mission has been in contact a few times about just kind of information on them because they want to look at doing that. But obviously it goes very hand in hand with engineering and design aspects for even final use products, but more commonly prototyping. Architecture uses it. There's been found uses in other very large scale manufacturing places. Just since I have a golf hat on, there was one of the major companies in it, Cobra, was utilizing 3D printing in some of their clubs last year. I've seen many kind of third party, like classic car production companies, like they make replacement parts for classic cars that don't produce those certain parts anymore, have come up and done that. So it's starting to spread into many, and what the certificate would do is show that the technology, the design aspects of the technology, to where if it's running a makerspace, or maybe it's a deciding factor in becoming a science teacher at a high school in the near future, is being able to run a 3D printer. Well, this is that one extra kick in, this extra technology that's growing, that's huge already and growing, and it's starting to spread into many, many different fields.
So this is such an emerging field, this might actually prepare students for some jobs that don't even exist yet.
Yeah, when I was interviewing for this job, they asked about that, and I said I don't know what the market is right now for strictly a 3D printing knowledgeable person, beyond 3D companies that make filament or machines, and then kind of, like I said, with maker spaces like this or anything like that, where even as fast and as wide as the market's growing, there's still so much unknown because it's still rapidly growing as a technology, because more people are coming into places like this, seeing it, talking with people that have nerded out over it for the last 2 or 3 years, whatever it's been, and getting the information on what it can do, even though that's a very broad answer on its own. Yeah, as well as at least for like kind of the initial couple classes, it's like that's more than enough information just to use these casually at home if you want to do baby Groots or tabletop miniatures.
Baby Groot, show us Baby Groot, Matt.
Home improvement kind of things. Like I have several things at home that I've printed.
Baby Groot is kind of a fan favorite, isn't it?
Easier. Yeah, this was the star of the SOAR convention. Was just everyone freaking out over Baby Groot, especially when we would tell them that it's a wood-filled filament. So like when it's printing, it smells like a fireplace kind of going, a toasted wood smell. This brand in particular stands very well. It's supposed to be able to stain. I've still not gotten around to doing one of those for display, a stained version, but I have seen it done with some other ones. On the kind of other side of like additional filament kind of things, there's flexible. This is something I've been working with one of the professors here on for a while, and had kind of a big breakthrough idea recently to do flexibles so that it grips onto the thing that he needs it for, as well as grips a measurement tool up here. So like the amount of filaments that are out there are growing every year, both at the casual level of color changing based on the angle, glow in the darks, different kind of fields, as well as very, very high in engineering ones that are being used in aerospace, being involved with space. I don't know about space travel. That seems something that sounds different in my head, but like on the spaceships, there's several companies, I think mostly out of Texas, that are using large format metal machines to make major structures of the rockets so that they can be reused, as well as just made incredibly quicker than traditional means for creating those large rocket parts.
Wow.
Even by kind of extension on that, the International Space Station has a custom 3D printer on it, so that they don't have to send up several pounds worth of space, which is always very viable or very important in I guess now it would be space travel, for tools or replacement things. They can send a roll of filament whenever they need, and then just however space internet works, send them files so that they can then print the replacement tool or whatever is needed up there.
So this is the implications for this technology are just almost limitless, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's been a statement that I always hate to say it because it feels like an overstatement, but it's just I've yet to see directly the limit on it, other than just printing directly in air, and to a certain point that gets looked at with some of the biological printing styles where they print biological matter in gel, so it's kind of a suspended thing. But yeah, as the technology's been able to grow over the last couple decades, or decade and a half, I think, closer to it, when some patents ended and companies were able to just go wild with ideas and production and stuff. It's like I said, it's kind of all up on the user. What's the limit of it?
Right. Well, back one more time before we need to wrap up. We're going to be offering the very first class in this certificate program, the by term of this semester, this spring. So that will begin March 14th of 2022, and that's the Introduction to 3D Printing class, correct?
Yeah.
And you will be the instructor.
Yes.
Okay. So if students are interested in signing up for that class, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I think it's been flashing up on the screen periodically, but the probably best way is through my email. If you have any further questions, there's a phone number for the Ideas Lab. At the same time, you're more than welcome to come in if you have any questions regarding the classes, regarding just printing Pokemon or household items, whatever it kind of is, because it is still the free to use open makerspace. There's a times for it as well. So any of those three's fine with me.
Great. Well, thank you, Matt. Is there anything that you would like to add that you think we haven't covered today?
Not that I can think of, because we covered a lot.
We did. Okay, well, this is exciting. I think that our students are going to be pleased. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. You had mentioned to me that the class was going to be a hybrid, so partially online and partially
that's
on site.
Part,
is that
part
your?
of it that I don't know yet, because with Somerset, where they've done it for so long, they offer an online and in class and a hybrid. So it's all dependent on what we want to do here on campus, because I know there's many more students on campus this semester than over the last few. I think regardless if it ends up being an online or a hybrid style, I would still offer the lab to come in, because I know a lot of students, myself included, more comfortable working in a classroom setting, as well as being able to learn hands-on with the machines, because that's going to be an important part of it regardless, is being able to work with machines, putting things on them, making sure that they start well, with no issues that could directly cause a failure sooner rather than later. So I'm not 100% on what we're going to do for the classes right now, but either way, the lab would be open for students regardless of the class type that it ends up being.
Okay, and my understanding is that for the rest of the program, so there are 2 classes that a student will take to get the certification that are in 3D printing, and then there's an entrepreneurship, a business, and an IT. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, some of the other ones, because one of the desires with the Ideas Lab, and then by extension how the DPT classes ended up being organized, is so that people can take their knowledge with these ideas or with the technology. And if they have an idea for a business that they want to do, or a product that they just want to patent and be able to sell, the business classes would be able to take care of that. I don't think the IT class would be much of an issue, because I think most diplomas and certificates require that, as well as where this is so tech focused, you will be using a computer as well as the machines, that knowledge would be needed. But I don't think that would be too much of an issue with how needed the IT classes kind of are in general.
So just to recap, so we've got really two major purposes right now of the Ideas Center. We're open to the community, to members of the community to come in for free
Mhm.
to design or to print something that's already pre-existing, or if they've invented a widget or a part that they want to print, as a prototype for a business. Really, the sky's the limit there, but it's free, it's open to the community, and from 9:30 to 4:30 every day, Monday through Friday, people can just come in. And do they need an appointment, Matt, or they can just come in during that time?
No, the way I've been going as we've kind of been slow rolling because we still have so many kind of restrictions and stuff related to the campus and the world at large with the COVID protocols is, if they can still come in as they please, because I've yet to be kind of overwhelmed with meetings or with well, there's been a couple times been overwhelmed with projects. If it was at a large scale kind of thing like the Cumberland Gap lanterns or some of the stuff for the SOAR convention. But
So it might be best
if
if
they feel more comfortable calling, emailing, whatever it is, to get an idea on anything, I'm also more than okay with knowing, we have kind of an unofficial appointment at a time that works best for them, because I'm here from those times, plus a little bit, for any kind of maintenance or machine clearing that I need to do before or after those times.
Sure. You wouldn't want everybody showing up all at the same time. So
Yeah.
okay. And then, so that's the Ideas Center portion. And then, of course, we have the new certification in digital printing technology that students can pursue, or someone can come in as a new student, if they're not already an existing student, and pursue that certificate. And it's 16 hours, which is basically 5 classes, right?
Yeah, for the entire certificate, there's some additional classes that, again, I have the cheat sheet or had it. I don't know where it went for those. But I think when it gets into some of the higher classes beyond DPT 100 and like 10 or 150, it goes a lot heavy into the design aspects for utilizing the softwares, the design softwares, as well as getting it ready for additive manufacturing, where 100 and to a certain point 150, anyone could probably come in and take those, and just, like I said, if they have any desire to have one at home and casually use, those classes would go a long way for getting you an idea and getting you comfortable with the machines.
Okay, so if somebody, you keep mentioning that people could have these at home. Do you know a ballpark figure of how much a machine like that costs?
It's a very wide range. There's one just off camera that way. That's a very, very popular machine, in part because of its price and because of the print quality that can come off of it. That's around $200 on many sites. It's on sale a lot. For the versions of it that we have in the lab, it was closer to like $240 because there was a few updates done to it, all the way up to like the ones behind me that are $1,000 if it's pre-assembled by the company, or $700 if you have a week or so to put together a very large puzzle, because it's every little nut and bolt. But at the same time, that gives you a lot of knowledge, a lot of information that if something clogs or messes up, you can kind of replay it in your head, or I was able to, and repair it. Some of the other ones, which I think is what LMU we're looking at, is around $400 for a pretty large formatted machine. It's like a foot by foot by 16 inches or so tall. So they're in the ballpark of like most game consoles now, as kind of a broad idea that people would be able to relate to.
Okay. So yeah, somebody who's a gamer wouldn't be that intimidated by going out and buying a 3D printer and just having it in their house. That'd be on par with what they're used to.
Yeah, well, as far as the price and kind of like the footprint on a shelf or something, it's going to be kind of in those areas. The height will change more based on what those are. I just remembered because Prusa also makes a mini. It's only kind of mini in terms of these. That's $350, I think. And it includes some of the extra technology that these have. Is like 3 major pieces and some wires that have to be connected to get it put together. It's a very in the middle kind of machine of good price, provides a lot, large or very good support from this kind of company.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, once again, people can sign up for classes within the next couple of weeks, or sign up for a class in 3D printing, Introduction to 3D Printing. It'll be the very first class that we're offering towards this new certification at Southeast called Digital Printing Technology. And thank you so much for talking to us today, Matt. I'm excited to see where this goes.
I am too.
Okay. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you.